Welcome to the Smart Weight Loss Coaching Podcast. I'm Dr. Lisa Oldson, a board-certified weight loss medicine specialist and certified life coach. In this podcast, I'll share fresh insights and effective techniques for incorporating mindset, habit change, and proven science into your life. Are you ready to achieve sustainable weight loss, wellness, and longevity? Then let's jump in and lose weight the smart way. Welcome back. Today we're talking about cholesterol because according to the brand new guidelines, this topic is relevant for you even if you're as young as 10 years old. I'd like to start with a story about two of the men in my family. My maternal grandfather died at 47 years old of a heart attack back in 1960. He left behind my mom, who was only 13 years old at the time, as well as my grandmother and her three other children, one of whom was a baby. As a mother myself, I find that heartbreaking. Here's what strikes me about the year 1960. It was the very same year that the American Heart Association first began recommending a specific diet to reduce the risk of heart disease. The very beginning of our understanding that what you eat matters for your heart. And yet, even though the link between high cholesterol and heart disease was understood since the 1950s, it was routine at that time not to check a person's cholesterol. There was no screening or conversation about cholesterol levels back then. Unfortunately, there was no warning number on a lab report that might have given my grandfather a chance to make changes before his heart attack. My grandfather didn't know he had heart disease until the week he died. His doctor probably didn't know what to look for, and so nothing happened until everything blew up. Now fast forward roughly 30 years later when my dad turned 47, the same age his father-in-law never made it past. By that point, medicine had changed and cholesterol screening had become routine. When my dad went in for his checkup, his cholesterol was checked, and when it was found to be high, he was started on a statin. Same age, completely different outcome. My dad lived to be 81. 34 extra years that included watching his children grow up, engaging with his grandchildren, and living a full life that my grandfather never got the chance to live. I credit those years in large part to a little pill that lowered his cholesterol and to a doctor who knew to check it. Now, I'll be honest with you, my dad also struggled with his weight his entire life. And I think about this often given the work that I do. Had the GLP-1 medications we have today been available during his lifetime, medications like semaglutide that we now know treat excess weight, protect the heart, and reduce cardiovascular risk, I truly believe he might have lived even longer. We'll never know. But that's exactly why I get so excited about the tools we have available now that previous generations simply didn't have access to. Let's talk about the new 2026 cholesterol guidelines released by the American Heart Association, the American College of Cardiology, and 9 other professional organizations. Currently, cardiovascular diseases like heart attacks and strokes kill 1 out of every 3 of us. And yet at least 80% of that is preventable, according to Dr. Roger Blumenthal, a cardiologist from Johns Hopkins who chaired the new guideline committee. We have so many more tools in our preventive health toolbox today. The question is whether we're using them to our full advantage. Today, we're going to break down the most important takeaways from the new 2026 cholesterol guidelines, and we'll connect them to something that matters to everyone listening: your weight and what you eat. The eating habits that raise your cholesterol are the same ones that make it hard to lose weight. And the dietary changes that guidelines recommend aren't just good for the arteries of your heart, they're also good for your weight and may even extend your health span. The guidelines give us a new emphasis on detecting high cholesterol early because the total number of years we live with elevated LDL or bad cholesterol really matters. They recommend starting to screen in early childhood, around age 10, to catch people early if they have genetically high cholesterol. We should be testing again around age 18 to 20 and then at least every 5 years after that. One of the biggest frustrations with the old cholesterol guidelines was that they focused on a person's 10-year risk of having a heart attack or stroke, but by the time a person was identified as being at risk, they may have had years, if not decades, of elevated cholesterol, which was slowly doing damage. People in their 40s and 50s weren't treating their cholesterol as aggressively as perhaps they should have, or maybe not at all, because their 10-year risk wasn't high. The new message is that we should be aggressive about lowering LDL to specific targets and that the number of years or decades someone lives with high cholesterol matters. In other words, you have a higher lifetime risk of a heart attack or a stroke if you live with high cholesterol for longer. The last set of guidelines from 2018 moved away from specific target numbers. Instead of giving you a goal for your cholesterol, doctors were told to just focus on getting patients on the right medication at the right dose. Patients found that confusing, and honestly, so did a lot of doctors. The new 2026 guidelines fixed these problems. One thing that's helpful is that they brought back specific LDL targets. Here are the 3 numbers I want you to remember: 100, 70, and 55. 100, 70, 55. If you're a generally healthy adult working on heart disease prevention, meaning you've never had a heart attack or a stent, your LDL goal is anything below 100. That's where all of us should be aiming by embracing a healthy lifestyle with behavior change and medication if needed. If you're at higher risk, maybe you have diabetes or kidney disease or a strong family history of heart disease like I do, your goal drops to below 70. And if you've already had a cardiac event like a heart attack, bypass surgery, angioplasty, or a stent, your goal is now below 55. In fact, last year I attended a grand rounds at Northwestern where the title of the talk was half jokingly something like, "Should our LDL goal be 0? Getting below 55 is an aggressive LDL goal. And that's intentional because the evidence is clear. For people who've already had one cardiac event, getting the LDL that low significantly reduces the risk of another. So the next time you're at the doctor, please don't just ask, "Is my cholesterol okay?" I want you to ask, "What is my LDL target and are we hitting it?" Those are very different conversations. The guidelines also introduce a new way to calculate your personal heart disease risk, replacing a calculator that's been around for over a decade. The old one was based on data from about 26,000 people. The new one, which is called Prevent, was built from data on about 6.5 million people. It's more accurate and it factors in things the old calculator missed, like kidney health and metabolic factors. Interestingly, the new calculator tends to give a lower risk estimate than the old one. So some people who were previously told that they were at intermediate or high risk may actually be at lower risk than they thought, which can be reassuring, of course. But there's a flip side. The threshold for when doctors should consider cholesterol medication has also changed. It dropped from a 7.5% 10-year risk down to a 5% 10-year risk. So some people who were previously told, "We'll just watch your cholesterol," may now need to have a conversation about treatment. The practical takeaway: ask your doctor to run your risk calculation using the new Prevent calculator and ask for both your 10-year and your 30-year risk. That 30-year number is new and it's such powerful information. It shifts the question from, "Will I have a heart attack in the next decade?" to, "Will I have a cardiovascular problem in the next 30 years?" You can see how this gives so much more information to someone in their 40s or 50s. My grandfather never got a risk calculation, but my father did get the 10-year risk calculator, and that difference changed everything. I lost my dad when I was in my 50s compared to my mom, who lost hers at 13. So let's say you and your doctor run the numbers and you land somewhere in the middle. Not clearly low risk, not clearly high risk. You're in that gray zone where the decision about taking medication to lower cholesterol isn't obvious. This is where coronary artery calcium scoring from a heart scan becomes really useful. Dr. Roger Blumenthal calls it the best tiebreaker we have, which I love. Here's how it works. A coronary artery calcium, or CAC scan, is a quick, low radiation CAT scan of your heart. It detects calcium deposits in your coronary arteries, which are a direct sign of plaque buildup in the heart. If we don't see any calcium, that's great news. A score of 0 means your risk is low enough that if you're not inclined toward medication, you can focus on creating a healthy lifestyle for the next 5 to 7 years and then reassess. But if there is calcium present, your LDL target becomes more specific. A little calcium points to a goal below 100. Moderate calcium, shoot for below 70. And if there's a lot of calcium, you need to aim for an LDL below 55. You'll notice those are the same 3 numbers I mentioned earlier, 100, 70, and 55. The CAC scan essentially tells your doctor which target applies to you, even when the prevent risk calculator leaves things uncertain. It turns a vague conversation about cholesterol and healthy habits into a clear plan with a target number, and that clarity could save your life. Now, I want to tell you about 2 blood tests that aren't on most people's radar yet, but are front and center in these new guidelines. Before we do that, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. Just kidding. It's still me, Dr. Lisa Oldson. I wanted to announce that we're rebranding. While the Smart Weight Loss Coaching Program essence stays the same, our new name better reflects what we actually do together in the program. Welcome to the Weight Loss Strategy Lab. Beyond coaching, at the Weight Loss Strategy Lab, we teach, experiment, reflect, and explore the latest science around weight loss, longevity, habit change, and health. I bring all of this to my live weekly strategy sessions on Zoom alongside our signature courses, medication Q&A calls, worksheets, and more. The biggest shift is in mindset. In the Strategy Lab, we approach weight loss like scientists, not like judges. When you get off track, and we all do, there's no judgment. Instead, we help you dissect what happened, find the learning, and build a better hypothesis for next time. For now, you can still find the Weight Loss Strategy Lab men's and women's programs at our original website, smartweightlosscoaching.com. And we're back. Let's talk about 2 blood tests that are getting rockstar treatment for the first time in the 2026 cholesterol guidelines. The first is LPA, or lipoprotein(a). The guidelines say that every adult should have this measured at least once in their lifetime. About 1 in 5 people have elevated lipoprotein(a), and it significantly raises heart disease risk. But a standard cholesterol panel doesn't capture that risk, which is almost entirely genetic. You cannot diet or exercise your way out of a high LPA. But if you know your number's high, then you can aggressively manage your healthy behaviors and start appropriate medication as recommended by your doctor. A lot of patients hear their lipoprotein(a) is elevated and they panic because they assume it means they're destined for a heart attack. Dr. Blumenthal specifically addressed this. An LPA of 125 is associated with about a 40% increased relative risk of cardiovascular disease compared to someone with a low level of lipoprotein(a). A very high level of 250 nanomoles per liter increases the risk further. That's meaningful, but it's certainly not a death sentence. Knowing if you have an elevated lipoprotein(a) motivates you to get your LDL down aggressively and take your lifestyle seriously. The second blood test is ApoB, or apolipoprotein B. Think of your standard LDL number as measuring how much of the bad cholesterol is in your blood. ApoB measures how many bad particles are carrying that and other unhealthy types of cholesterol. Particle count matters. You can have an LDL that looks acceptable, but if your ApoB is high, especially if you have high triglycerides or if you have diabetes, your actual risk may be higher than your standard cholesterol panel suggests. I wonder sometimes whether my grandfather had elevated lipoprotein A or ApoB. We'll never know, but if he had been screened, if that option had existed back then, that information might have saved his life, and it could save yours. If your doctor hasn't mentioned either of these tests, it's worth asking, should I have my lipoprotein A and my ApoB checked? These are simple blood tests. They're not fancy tests reserved for those in a clinical trial. The new 2026 cholesterol guidelines call out the value of these tests because they could tell you something your standard cholesterol panel has been missing. Now, here's why I want to connect all of this to why you're listening to this particular podcast. These new guidelines are very clear. Living a healthy lifestyle with healthy habits is the foundation of cardiovascular preventive health. Whether or not you take medication, a healthy lifestyle is always the bedrock. That was true in 1960, and it's still true today. And the dietary pattern the guidelines describe as heart protective, it looks almost identical to what I talk about all the time for weight loss. More vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and fish. Less ultra-processed food, less added sugar, less red and processed meat. I want you to hear this clearly. The diet that lowers your LDL cholesterol and lowers your risk of having a heart attack or a stroke is largely the same diet that supports a healthy weight. These are not two separate goals requiring two separate plans. They are the same goal, and the same lifestyle changes that will help you lower your cholesterol will also help you lose weight and increase your health span. When you eat for one of these goals, you're eating for both. When you cut ultra-processed foods, those high-calorie, low-nutrient foods that drive weight gain, you're simultaneously removing some of the biggest dietary contributors to elevated LDL and high triglycerides. When you add more fiber-rich whole foods, you're supporting your gut health and helping your liver to clear excess LDL cholesterol from your bloodstream. Most of us live the last 10 years of our lives in poor health. So your lifespan might be 81 years, like my dad, but if you're struggling with the burden of multiple chronic diseases throughout your 70s, I'll tell you, having seen it firsthand, that's no way to live. Now is the time to take action to impact your health span. It's never too late, but the earlier you address it, the more power you'll have to impact the way you age. My dad took his statin faithfully, and it helped him enormously. But the medications we have today, including the GLP-1 medications that treat excess weight and directly protect the heart, give us an even more powerful toolkit. Lifestyle, cholesterol treatment, and weight management are no longer separate conversations. The best doctors are weaving them together, and that's exactly what I try to do in this podcast and in my weight loss program every single day. Let me bring it back to where we started. My grandfather died at 47, my father at 81. That difference wasn't luck, it was knowledge, screening, and treatment. The new 2026 cholesterol guidelines are, at their core, about making sure more people get that same opportunity that my father had. Earlier screening, clearer targets, better tools, and less guessing. Okay, friends, it's time to set your NBA, your next best action for today. Let's touch on a few things you might consider for your NBA. Keep in mind the 3 LDL numbers, 100, 70, and 55. You might schedule an appointment to ask your doctor which LDL target applies to you. You might ask about the new Prevent Risk Calculator and ask for your 30-year risk, not just your 10-year risk. If you're in a gray zone, ask whether a coronary artery calcium scan makes sense for you. And finally, if it's never been done, you should ask your doctor to check your lipoprotein a at least once in your lifetime. Remember that any nutrition change you'd like to make for weight loss may also be protecting your heart at the same time. My grandfather didn't have these tools, but you do. Please use them because your health matters. Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like more support during your smart weight loss journey, check out our group coaching program at smartweightlosscoaching.com. Until next time, stay well and stay smart.